Welcome back, my friends, to Faces of History, the show where we reach deep into the earth, sift through the dust of forgotten ages, and look the ancient past square in the eye. I am your host, the Duke of New York, and tonight we travel farther back than any king's reign or empire's rise. Tonight we step into an age before written words, before cities, before stone castles crowned the hills. We step into the Ice Age, to meet a people whose footprints, scattered tools, and broken bones whisper one of humanity's oldest American stories. The first great wanderers of North America, the Clovis People. Who were they? Where did they come from? How did they live, love, hunt, dream, and why did they vanish so swiftly, leaving behind only spear points buried in mammoth ribs? Gather close. The fire is lit. Let's walk together into a world of giant beasts, endless plains, and the silent, ancient courage of those who came before us. To understand the Clovis people, we must first stand at the edge of a world that would be unrecognizable to us today, a world of ice and possibility. 13,000 years ago, the earth trembled beneath the weight of giants. Massive ice sheets, glaciers taller than mountains, sprawled from the Arctic Circle down through what is now Canada, pushing south into the very heart of North America. These frozen rivers carved valleys, built lakes, shifted rivers, and shaped the land we know now as the Great Plains and the Eastern Woodlands. But this icy prison did more than sculpt the land. It locked up so much water that ocean levels fell by hundreds of feet. Where now the Bering Strait divides Alaska from Siberia with churning cold waves, then lay a vast, cold, wind-swept plain of tundra and steppe. This was Beringia, the fabled land bridge. Here, in this lonely expanse of ice, rock, and scrub, bands of ancient hunters, the ancestors of the Clovis, crossed from Asia into the New World. They did not come all at once, nor in armies, nor with maps. They came in family groups, kinship bands guided by instinct, curiosity, and hunger. They brought with them dogs, crude stone tools, fire-hardened spears, and knowledge passed from parent to child beside flickering hearths. These first Americans did not yet know they were reshaping history with every step. They simply followed the herds, reindeer, bison, caribou, and the greatest prize of all, the mammoth. These animals, too, crossed the land bridge, grazing on tough grasses that pushed up through the permafrost. Where the prey went, the people followed, until, step by careful step, they spread southward, eastward, into a continent larger and wilder than anything they had ever known. It was not a single migration. It was a pulse, a living current of humanity flowing in waves for generations. Some bands settled in Alaska and the Yukon, carving out a life on the glacier's ragged edge. Others pressed deeper on up, seeking warmer lands, open plains where vast herds roamed beneath the shadow of retreating ice. And in time, from these wanderers, a culture emerged that we now call Clovis. Yet the word Clovis is ours, not theirs. They had no flag to plant, no name to write on stone. Their identity is written instead in the flint they shaped with breathtaking precision, in the signature of their work found buried beneath millennia of wind-blown soil. Archaeologists first cracked open this hidden age in the 1920s and 1930s, when workers near Clovis, New Mexico, unearthed stone spear points lodged alongside the bones of long-extinct mammoths and bison. Before this discovery, few dared imagine humans had lived in the Americas so deep in time. The Clovis find shattered that idea, pushing humanity's timeline in North America back thousands of years. These people did not appear overnight. They were the result of centuries of experimentation, learning, and survival. The fluted Clovis point was no accidental innovation. It was the apex of generations of trial and error. Their ancestors knapped crude blades, but the Clovis perfected a method that allowed a spear to pierce thick hides and heavy muscle, making it a weapon worthy of the age's greatest beasts. Their world was not empty wilderness. It was alive, echoing with the rumble of migrating mammoths, the thunder of giant bison herds, the snarl of dire wolves, and the shadows of saber-toothed cats stalking the edges of firelight. The Clovis lived not as conquerors but as guests, their survival balanced delicately with the land's fierce abundance and equally fierce dangers. Imagine what it meant to stand at the edge of an untouched continent, to walk a land no human foot had marked, to see rivers that had never known a bridge or boat, to hunt creatures that had known only the claws and fangs of predators. until a clever, upright ape arrived, armed with fire, flint, and a hunger that would shape the fate of 2 continents. This is the world that bore the Clovis. A world of ice, yes, but also a world of boundless possibility, where a people with nothing but stone and sinew dreamed of tomorrow's hunt, tomorrow's path, tomorrow's fire. And though the glaciers would melt and the great beasts would fall, the story they began, of migration, adaptation, survival, would echo down through every people who came after them, whispering that we are all, at heart, wanderers, chasing the edge of the known. If you truly wish to know the Clovis people, do not begin with the hunters stalking mammoths across frozen plains. Begin instead with the smallest among them, the children whose first breath was drawn beneath animal hides and drifting snow. For to be born a child of the Ice Age was to enter a world that demanded strength long before the first step was taken. Picture this, a winter camp, hidden in the lee of a rocky bluff, somewhere on the ancient plains that would one day be called New Mexico, or Montana, or Alberta. Names these people would never know. The wind moans through the grasses and scrubs, driving snow into every crevice. But within the circle of tents, stitched from mammoth hide and bison skin, the cold is pushed back by the glow of a fire, the smell of roasting meat, the murmur of a mother's song. Here a Clovis child opens his eyes for the first time. There is no cradle, no carved wooden crib. The child's first bed is the warmth of his mother's chest, wrapped tight in fur against the bite of the wind. His first lullaby is the crackle of burning wood, the whisper of elders speaking softly around the fire. Life begins in movement. For the Clovis, there were no permanent homes. The camp itself is a living thing, rising and falling like breath as the herds move and the seasons shift. When the game is plenty, the camp grows noisy with laughter, the pounding of hides stretched on frames, the chip-chip of flint napped into deadly perfection. When food grows scarce, the families shoulder what they can carry and follow the tracks of giant bison or the distant silhouettes of mammoths trudging across the horizon. A Clovis child learns early that every day is a lesson in survival. A toddler's playground is a ring of sharpened stakes, a shelter of hides battered by wind, a river's edge where mammoth bones bleach in the sun. Small hands grasp scraps of flint, practice shards, learning to feel the stone's secrets long before they will ever hold a true spear point. They watch the older boys and girls imitate the hunters, spears carved from willow branches, tips dull but dreams sharp. Children listen, always listening, to mothers teaching which roots to dig when the berries are gone, which insects can be eaten when the herds move on. They watch grandmothers tan hides, fashion needle and thread from bone and sinew, stories and skills passed in whispers older than memory itself. And they listen to the hunters, fathers, uncles, older brothers, as they return from the chase. They hear tales of the beasts that ruled the plains, the bull mammoth whose roar split the silence, the dire wolf that circled the edge of campfire light, eyes gleaming with hunger. These stories were not only warnings, they were lessons written in blood, shaping the courage that every child must someday wear like a cloak. But do not mistake the Ice Age for an endless nightmare of cold and fear. There was warmth too. Warmth in closeness, in the bond that made a small band stronger than any beast alone. When spring broke the winter's back, Clovis children ran laughing across meadows, bursting with wildflowers and new grass. They played at the edges of melting rivers, skipping stones, chasing each other between towering mammoth tracks pressed into the mud like ancient runes. They learned to mimic the calls of birds, to taste the air for distant smoke, a sign of another band, friend or rival. They learned which mushrooms to gather, which insects to flick away. A Clovis child's toys were bones, stones, scraps of hide, simple things that trained hands for the tasks to come. Older children, not yet hunters but no longer babes, sat close when flint knappers worked by the fire. They watched the master's hands strike stone against stone, coaxing out blades so fine they could split hide or pierce the ribs of a beast that could crush a man with a careless step. And when they failed, when a stone shattered wrong, they learned that failure was the oldest teacher of all, harsh, patient, and never silent for long. We know these truths not from written words, for the Clovis left no inked record, but from the clues they pressed into the earth. We find small burials, sometimes the fragile bones of children laid to rest with red ochre dusted over them, a symbol of life, death, and perhaps rebirth. We find tiny flint flakes near the bones of ancient camps, proof that even the smallest hands were given the gift of learning. And we see, in every perfect Clovis point buried deep in the ribs of a mammoth, the story of a child who once dreamed of the hunt, who grew strong in the biting winds and the warmth of kin, who one day would step from the safety of the firelight into the vastness of the plains to stand where his father stood before him. In the end, the children of the Ice Age remind us that survival was not just about the hunt or the spear or the fire. It was about the passing of knowledge from old to young, a fragile spark cradled against the storms of an unforgiving world. Without that spark, there is no Clovis story. Without it, there is no us. To truly see the Clovis people, you must stand among them at dawn, feel the bite of wind on your cheeks, smell the tang of animal hides and drifting wood smoke, hear the quiet rustle of sinew and stone in practiced hands. They were hunters first, but they were never just that. They were dreamers, makers, storytellers who built their lives around the sacred cycle of the chase and the fire. In the age of the Clovis, the hunt was life and death, and the thin line between them both. A hunting party did not form on a whim. Days of preparation went into a single moment when man and beast would meet on the frozen plains. Hunters rose before dawn, feeling the cold ache in their bones, checking weapons by the faint glow of the fire. The Clovis point, that masterwork of flint, was tested again and again, its razor edge so sharp it could cut flesh with a whisper. Men and older boys, and perhaps some women, when the need was great, slipped away in small groups, tracking the herds by the signs only they could read. A broken branch, a clump of mammoth hair snagged on a tree, dung steaming in the frigid air. They spoke little, words scared prey and wasted breath. Their language, lost to us now, was woven with subtle signs and gestures. A hand signal could mean there, fresh track. A nod could mean wait. The flick of a finger, now. When the moment came, they struck like shadows. Some hunts were ambushes, driving a mammoth or bison into bogs or narrow ravines where its size became a curse. Others were relentless pursuits, pushing an animal to exhaustion before closing in for the kill. When a mammoth fell, the earth shook. It could feed a band for weeks, its bones becoming shelters, its hides stretched and cured, its sinews turned to thread that bound every piece of life together. But a hunt could fail. And when it did, the Clovis knew hunger like an old, unwelcome friend. They were ready to strip bark, dig roots, crack old bones for marrow. They knew the land could not be forced. It could only be read, respected, endured. Between hunts, the Clovis camp was alive with work. The women and elders tanned hides over smoky fires, scraping away fat and flesh with stone blades until the skins grew soft and pliable. They shaped these hides into cloaks, boots, simple shelters, protection against the merciless wind. Makers sat by the fire, striking stone on stone with a precision that echoes through the centuries. Flint knappers, artists in their own right, selected each rock for its grain and hardness. One careless blow could ruin hours of patient shaping. A master might hold the unfinished blade up to the light, studying its lines as if reading a secret only he could see. Children watched, learning. The next point, the next scraper, the next all seeds planted in young hands. Bone, too, became tool and ornament. Clovis people fashioned needles to sew hides, awls to punch holes, points for smaller game. Antlers turned to handles, sinews to cordage. Nothing was wasted, not a shard, not a sliver. And when the day's work ended, the camp filled with quieter tasks, repairing tools, mending cloaks, tending wounds from the hunt. These people knew that survival depended on diligence more than brute force. But survival alone does not tell the whole story. Even in a world ruled by ice and teeth, the Clovis people dreamed. In the flickering dark, by fires that held the wolves at bay, they told stories. Stories that no stone tool could preserve, but that we can still glimpse in the careful burials, the beads of ochre, the way they laid down their dead. They likely spoke of ancestors, of the great herds, of the spirits that moved in the storms and the stars. They may have sung songs that drifted over the plains to mingle with the cries of distant animals. Some of this we know only through guesswork. A mammoth rib pierced by a Clovis point is silent, yet it hints at ritual as much as survival. Did they believe the spirit of the beast must be honored? Did they dream that the hunt would come again if they gave thanks to the land? These are questions the earth keeps close, but the signs, scattered in ochre stains and burial pits, whisper that these ancient hunters were more than brutes. Their rituals, simple or complex, were part of life's fragile order. When they buried a child, they sprinkled red ochre, the color of blood, of life. When they left behind tools at campsites, they did not do so carelessly. Some caches hint at offerings for journeys to come, prayers for hunts yet unborn. To live as a Clovis was to walk the edge of extinction, every day. Yet within that harsh edge glowed the softer flame of craft, story, and memory. They were not faceless hunters. They were artists of stone and bone. They were storytellers beneath unchanging stars. They were dreamers who chased giant beasts not only for meat, but for the promise of tomorrow. When we stand in museums today staring at a single fluted spear point under glass, we are not just looking at a weapon, we are looking at the hands that shaped it, the eyes that scanned the horizon, the dreams of a child born beside a winter fire, who once held that point and stepped out into the endless plain, daring to survive, daring to imagine. And now, my friends, we come to the greatest riddle the Clovis people left us, the silence at the end of their story. For all their skill, their fluted points, their mastery of the hunt, they disappeared. Like a campfire doused by dawn, they left behind only ashes, tools buried deep, bones pressed into ancient soil, clues that speak but never shout. Why did they vanish? What brought down this first great pulse of humanity in North America? These hunters who once challenged the giants of the Ice Age and left their signature etched in mammoth ribs and bison skulls. The answer, like the last footprints they pressed into the earth, drifts in the wind between fact and theory. The end of an age. To begin, we must look again at the world they called home. The Clovis rose to meet the mammoth and the mastodon, creatures perfectly tuned for the cold. But the world does not stay still, and neither does climate. Around 12,900 years ago, right when the Clovis culture was at its peak, the planet's great thaw shuddered to a halt. For reasons we still debate, the warming that had slowly melted back the glaciers abruptly reversed. A sudden, severe cooling swept across the northern hemisphere, an event we now call the Younger Dryas. In some places, temperatures plunged back to near glacial conditions within a human lifetime. Rivers froze, plant life changed, migration patterns of prey shifted or collapsed altogether. The vast, cold grasslands that fed mammoth herds shrank. Giant bison moved or died. The Clovis, so finely adapted to hunting these giants, found themselves facing a disappearing pantry, a changing menu. One theory says the Clovis were simply too good at what they did. Armed with those razor-sharp fluted points and a cooperative style of hunting, they may have driven the mammoth and other megafauna to extinction. Some scientists argue that overhunting tipped the balance at the worst possible time, when climate was already tightening the noose. Others push back. Could a few thousand scattered bands of hunters truly erase entire species spread across an entire continent? Or were they witnesses to a natural cycle already in motion? The giants doomed by a warming world turned suddenly cold again, grasslands failing, calves born too few to replenish the herds? The truth may lie in both. Humans and climate locked in an ancient dance, each pushing the other toward a threshold neither could cross without loss. Then there is the most dramatic theory of all, that a cosmic hammer fell from the sky. Some researchers believe a comet or fragmented meteor struck Earth around the start of the Younger Dryas. They point to layers of blackened earth, microscopic spherules of melted rock, sudden wildfires that scorched entire regions. Did a comet impact or airburst set vast forests ablaze, blackening the sun, chilling the air, wiping out fragile ecosystems already trembling on the brink? If so, the Clovis would have faced not just a shift in prey or weather, but an apocalyptic landscape where ash fell like snow and familiar hunting grounds became charred wastelands. Not everyone agrees. The theory is fiercely debated. But if true, it would mean the Clovis stood beneath the same sky we do and watched it betray them in fire and ice. Did they really vanish? Yet perhaps the Clovis did not vanish at all. This is the softer mystery, the idea that the Clovis did not disappear, but changed. Archaeologists now believe that the Clovis Point, that unmistakable fluted spearhead, fell out of use as people adapted to new conditions. When the mammoths were gone, new prey demanded new tools. Smaller game, different landscapes, new hunting techniques. Their descendants, call them Folsom, Plano, Dalton, carried pieces of Clovis knowledge into the next age. Different points, different camps, but the same blood running in their veins. Bands split, spread, and changed, from Alaska's icy rivers to Florida's warm wetlands. In this version of the story, the Clovis did not die. They became the seed for the many cultures that followed, the ancestors of the First Nations, the Native American peoples whose line still runs strong today. So did they vanish, or did they adapt as humans do, leaving behind only their tools for us to find, mistaking their silence for an ending when it was only a turning of the page? Perhaps the true mystery is not why they disappeared, but why they ever appeared at all. Daring to cross frozen continents, to stand at the feet of giants, to push deeper into a wild and different land that would test every spark of courage they carried. What remains is the riddle pressed into stone and bone, a whisper that we are not so different, that when our world shifts beneath us, we too will stand at the edge of the known and ask, how do we survive? What must we become next? So, my friends, we stand here, warm in our homes, plugged into a world of satellites and glass screens, asking a question whispered across 13,000 years of dust and bone. Why does it matter? Why should we care about a people who never built a city, never carved a word in stone, who lived and died so long ago their memories are written only in spear points and shadows? It matters because the Clovis remind us who we really are. They remind us we are all migrants. First, they remind us that we are, at our core, a migrating species. Long before roads or borders or passports, our ancestors crossed frozen lands and vast plains, chasing survival and dreaming of more. The Clovis people's footprints are the first American story, a testament that our greatest skill is not the spear or the wheel or the machine, but the courage to keep moving, to keep adapting when the world shifts beneath our feet. When we debate migration today, when we build walls or tear them down, when we search for new homes in new lands, the Clovis whisper that this restlessness, this hunger for new horizons, is not new at all. It is as old as the campfires their children once fell asleep beside. They remind us we are makers. Second, they remind us that being human means being a maker. The Clovis fluted point is more than a weapon. It is an idea made real. A reminder that our ancestors didn't just survive by chance. They survived because they learned to shape the world around them, to take cold, stubborn rock and coax from it a blade so perfect it could bring down a beast the size of a truck. Today, we craft our own tools, machines that touch the edge of space, digital devices that connect continents in an instant. But the soul of that craft, that spark of ingenuity, was born in hands that struck flint beneath an Ice Age moon. The Clovis point sits in museums behind glass, but it also lives in every human hand that shapes, builds, and dares to say, we can make something better. They remind us of resilience. Third, the Clovis remind us that the earth changes, whether we are ready or not. They faced shifting climates, vanishing prey, sudden cold snaps that could end an age in a single generation. They remind us that survival is not guaranteed, that nature does not negotiate. Today, as we stand on the edge of our own changing climate, we are not so far removed from that ancient puzzle. Adapt or vanish. The Clovis story is both a warning and a hope, a reminder that we have faced upheaval before and that our survival depends not on strength alone, but on our willingness to learn, change, and pass on what we know. They remind us that memory is fragile. Finally, the Clovis people matter because they show us how easy it is for a story to be lost. For thousands of years, their tools and bones lay hidden beneath layers of soil, forgotten by all but the land. It took the right eyes, the right hands, an archaeologist sifting sand in the New Mexico sun, to breathe life back into that silence. They remind us that so much of who we are can be buried in an instant, that a culture, a people, can disappear if no one remembers. And so we remember. We tell their story not to mourn their vanishing, but to honor their survival, to remind ourselves that we too are just one turning of the earth away from being footprints in ancient mud. So when you see a Clovis point in a museum case, or hear the word Paleo-Indian whispered in the halls of history, don't think only of bones and stones. Think of families huddled against the cold. Think of children laughing under a sky so vast it could swallow every doubt. Think of hunters who watched a mammoth fall and wondered if the next hunt would bring them home or not at all. They matter because they are us, stripped to the core. No walls, no kings, no cities, only the simple, stubborn hope that tomorrow might be kinder than today. And that, my friends, is a lesson that never grows old. And so, my friends, as our fire burns low tonight, we stand up slowly and look out across that endless ice age plain one last time. We see them still, silhouettes moving through drifting snow, wrapped in furs, eyes fixed on the horizon, stone points strapped to ashwood shafts, dreams packed beside the flint and sinew in a leather pouch. A mother hums to calm a hungry child. A boy sharpens a practice blade by firelight, watching the hunters come and go like ghosts. A hunter kneels beside the ribs of a fallen mammoth, whispering thanks to a spirit older than any word. Their footprints are long gone, blown smooth by winds, swallowed by rivers, buried beneath cities and farmlands and highways we drive without a second thought. Yet when we kneel down in the right patch of ancient earth and press our palms into the cold soil, we can almost feel them, the warmth that lingers where they once huddled, the echo of a heartbeat carried forward in our blood. They remind us that we are the same. We, too, huddle around our flickering screens, telling stories to hold back the dark. We chase the future with the same stubborn hope that the land will feed us, that tomorrow will be better, that our children will carry our spark farther than we dared to go. When you close your eyes tonight, think of the Clovis. Think of the ancient courage it took to cross a continent of ice with only family, stone, and faith in tomorrow. Think of the voices that never wrote their names, but carved them instead in the bones of giants, in the secret trails across frozen rivers, in the red ochre sprinkled on the bones of the young. We owe them more than a passing glance in a dusty textbook. We owe them our wonder, our questions, our gratitude. For without them, without their footprints pressed into the dawn of our shared story, there would be no us to wonder at all. So keep asking questions, keep digging, in the earth, in the past, in yourself. The bones of mammoths may be silent now, but their story lives in your hands, your eyes, your voice. Thank you, my friends, for sitting with me tonight by this ancient fire, for brushing the dust from the faces of our deepest ancestors. If you felt the ice age breathe at the back of your neck, if you heard the quiet crunch of snow beneath Clovis' feet, then our time together was well spent. This has been Faces of History. I am the Duke of New York, keeper of stories, walker of ancient paths, reminding you that history is never dead. It only waits for you to look it in the eye. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and remember, we are all wanderers at heart. Good night.